Life loses half its interest if there's no struggle, if there's no risk to be taken. With these inspiring words of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, a very warm afternoon to one and all present here with us. I'm Shreya Dadwal, and on behalf of the Political Science Department of Sri Venkateswara College, I would like to extend a cordial welcome to our esteemed speaker, respected Principal Ma'am, our head of the department, convener and co-convener, distinguished faculty, and the students present in the meeting today. The prestigious institution of Sri Venkateswara College has achieved many milestones over the decades and is proud to celebrate its Diamond Jubilee year. Today, we have all gathered here to celebrate Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav on the 126th Jayanti of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, or officially Parakram Diwas, to honor Netaji's contribution to India's struggle for independence. The flame of the lamp always burns upwards, and similarly, one should acquire such knowledge to take us towards higher ideals. Hence, we light the lamp in reverence to knowledge as the greatest wealth. So, let's start the event by a virtual lighting of the lamp ceremony.
शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः.
Now, I would like to call upon the head of the Political Science Department, Dr. Jeeta Mishra Ma'am, to kindly address the gathering and formally inaugurate the Parakram Diwas celebration at Sri Venkateswara College, Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav.
Respected Principal Ma'am, Professor C. Sheila Reddy, Distinguished Speaker, Dhilipudi, Professor Santishree Dhulipudi Pandit, my dear students and esteemed colleagues. It is my genuine pleasure to welcome you all to this webinar. The Department of Political Science is celebrating the Parakram Diwas on the occasion of 126th Jayanti of the revolutionary Subhash Chandra Bose. In an effort to provide a learning experience and integrate classroom teaching with the outside world, the Department of Political Science has organized for you the webinar on the mentor of modern India, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Subhash Chandra Bose was born in Cuttack on 23rd January 1897. His father, Janakinath Bose, was a lawyer by profession. Subhash Chandra Bose was popularly known as Netaji, and he was at the forefront of the Indian independence. Bose was elected as the president of the Indian National Congress for 2 consecutive terms by the end of 1930s, but had to resign from his post following his ideological clashes with Mahatma Gandhi. Subhash Chandra Bose advocated violent resistance to the British government, which was just opposite to what Gandhi wanted. the policy of non-violence. Bose was India's most enigmatic leader and a great nationalist. He spent his entire life to fight for independence. He said, freedom is not given, it is taken. He also said, give me blood and I will give you freedom. Today I'm happy to see Professor Santishree Dhulipudi come here. I'm happy that, ma'am, you have taken some time off from your busy schedule to be with the students and to interact with them. I'm sure the students are going to learn a lot from the interaction with Madam. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We feel privileged to have your supervision and backing with us at all times. We are delighted to have the presence of our diligent principal, Dr. C. Sheila Reddy, ma'am. She's an epitome of knowledge and hard work for all of us. Ma'am, you are the guiding light of the institution. With that said, may I now invite our principal, ma'am, to kindly bless us with her invaluable words.
Thank you, Shreya. Very good afternoon to all of you. Firstly, a very warm welcome to Professor Santishree. Welcome Professor Santishree Pandit to Sri Venkateswara College and to the Department of Political Science. It's really a pleasure to have you this afternoon, especially for a very important occasion. That is as part of Parakram Diwas celebrations of our college. And and especially the title of the webinar or the interaction you have chosen is very apt. That is the mentor of modern India, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. So when we talk of freedom struggle, we often remember about Mahatma Gandhi and other moderates, but we do not discuss so much about people who held extreme views, but they are no less nationalistic in their approach. And if we talk about Netaji, he was one of the most prominent leaders of Indian freedom struggle. And as you know, he founded the Indian National Army, that is Azad Hind Fauj, to overthrow British Empire from India and came to acquire legendary status among Indian masses. Indomitable spirit and selfless service to the nation, he especially inspired youth with his fortitude and how you should tackle challenges in the face of diversity. There's a lot to learn from him, and he remains and continues to be a source of motivation to all the youth of our country. And we would hear more about him from Professor Santishree. It's so nice of you, ma'am. You have taken time for us, and definitely your experience and expertise on the theme will enrich the students. And I sincerely hope that it would be a very insightful session. With this, I extend a very warm welcome to you again amidst us and to Sri Venkateswara College. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for those words of encouragement and blessing us with your presence today, as well as bestowing upon us this wonderful opportunity of organizing this event. Without you, all this would not have been possible. Moving on, I find immense pleasure in introducing our esteemed speaker, Professor Santishree Dhulipudi Pandit ji, who is professor at Department of Politics and Public Administration in Savitribai Phule, Pune University. Ma'am has been associated with and held various administrative positions in academic bodies. Currently, she is a member of several statutory bodies, including University Grants Commission, Indian Council of Social Sciences Research, and visitors nominee to central universities. Ma'am has several publications to her credit. A multilinguistic, she speaks Tamil, Telugu, Sanskrit, Hindi, Marathi, and English. Ma'am has received various accolades such as Women Educator Award 2003 by Youth Forum for Gandhian Studies, Vistix Award for Women Leaders in the Next Decade. She has attended and presented papers at various seminars, symposia, and workshops, including a workshop in Bangkok on drugs security and violence in South and Southeast Asia, a national workshop on the universalization of indigenous approaches to social sciences, MES College, Pune, another national workshop under the UGC Center for Advanced Studies on migration and its impact on Indian state and democracy. She has been coordinator at University of Pune European Union Asia Link Program, executive committee member at Radical Humanist Association, member at Center for Social and Human Values USA, and executive committee member at Indian Association for American Studies. Ma'am has been external examiner for MPhil dissertations and PhD thesis at University of Madras, Jawaharlal Nehru University, Goa University, Dhaka University, and University of Hyderabad, and various other prestigious universities. Several articles by Ma'am have been published, several in The Hindu, News Today, Good Mantak Times, and several letters to editors. Ma'am, we are truly honored to have you with us today. May I now invite you to enlighten us on today's topic, Mentor of Modern India, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose.
Thank you, Shreya Dadwal, respected principal, Professor Sheila Reddy, head of the Department of Political Science, Dr. Jita Mishra, the co-convener, Dr. Santosh Kumar Singh, who got in touch with me along with Dr. Amit Singh, Mr. Shivam Kumar of the Political Science Association, and dear faculty and students. Let me at the outset thank you for inviting me to your college. As a student of the Jawaharlal Nehru University, I have come several times to your college because it's very close to my home state, that is Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu, the Tirupati Devasthanam. So I'm very happy because it has a very emotional and a cultural connect with me. I also thank the Political Science Department. What I would do is maybe I would speak for about 45 minutes so that I can throw certain ideas at you young students of political science, because you're going to be the future political scientists, and we want you to think in a very unique and build new frameworks, theoretical frameworks in political science, international relations, and other areas. So when we are talking today, you have invited me to speak on the, the 125th birth anniversary of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, also celebrating India's 75 years of independence. So with both these, is this move to put his statue and to revive his memories going to be a paradigm shift in the way we are going to read both our history or the way we are going to expand this? I would only say that the boundary between historical fact and fiction is more porous than students of history and political science might think. It is uncommon for countries to create self-serving or sanitized historical narratives. As George Orwell said, who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. So the question that we need to look afresh on the way we interpret our own independence movement or freedom struggle. The famous American historian, Robert Frickenberg, in his magnum, while working on India's freedom struggle, made a very important statement. He said that the Indian freedom struggle is also a Hindu revivalist movement. Whether we agree with that opinion or not is different. But what I would rather say is, this is a good opportunity to bring in multiplicity of views. Why am I saying this? The very fact we are celebrating Parakram Diwas and Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, because he has been a very mysterious figure and on whom we have several issues
Ma'am, I think there's a network issue.
because of the way these voices from.
Ma'am, I guess there's a network issue. You're not clearly audible. I guess the speaker is facing some network issues. She will be here with us in a few minutes as soon as she resolves the issue.
Can you hear me now? I'm sorry. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
I'm sorry. There was I think, some disruption. So the first point I would like to raise before you is the question of bringing with Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. He becomes a very important turning point for us in looking at our own freedom struggle. I come from the South. There are several South Indian freedom fighters who are not even mentioned.
Sorry to sorry to disturb you, ma'am. You're not audible. Ma'am, if you're facing some issue, you can try switching off your camera and then speak.
Is it fine now? I'm so sorry if there's a lot of disturbance from our side. Shreya, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible now.
So the first issue I would like to praise before you is the rewriting of our stories of history with evidence. I'm not saying that we have to, you need not condemn somebody, but can there be multiplicity of views, a diversity of views, as well as differences on the sacred cows we have created? So will the revival of the memory of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose allow us to do that? Because it can be a starting point, and young scholars like you who are trained very well in research methodology and all can do this, because there is a lot of dearth of information about our freedom struggle. The second is the myth that which was mentioned by your honorable principal, is that the myth that the Indian national movement was extremely non-violent. And this seems to be a carefully constructed narrative, because if most of us see that the contribution of the revolutionaries to the Indian national movement has been totally opposite. That was one of the reasons why Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose gets titles like war criminal. Even Nehru used that term, which is very unfortunate and I think very insensitive. Or even Sri Aurobindo, who later becomes the father of Indian nationalism and Sanatana Dharma. You may agree with them, not agree with them. That's a different issue. But my question is, how can you say that that narrative cannot exist? And if most of you know that Subhash Bose, after whom the Andaman and Nicobar Islands also have met Vinayak Damodar Savarkar there. And both of them were revolutionaries. You may not agree with what Savarkar has written, but please read Savarkar before condemning him. That is my plea, because Savarkar was an agnostic. He did not believe in religion. He is not like the fundamentalists of today. He is the first person to allow Dalits into a temple in Maharashtra, if most of you don't know, called the Patit Pavan Sangatana. And he used to every week speak in Pune on why there is no God. Show me how can you call him a Hindu fundamentalist? See, please understand, don't use Abrahamic binaries for non-Abrahamic religions. Why am I saying this? Because Abrahamic religions have doctrinal, doctrinally they do not accept certain differences. They are extremely fanatical about their doctrines. And whereas a non-doctrine religion does not have this type of fundamentalism or even extremism in its doctrines. Hindus may be fanatics, but Hinduism is not fundamentalist. So please understand that this whole idea of Abrahamic and non-Abrahamic religions is something that we have to understand. And this is the second thing that I would make in front of us, saying that the role of the revolutionaries. See, whether it is wrong to say that the entire movement was non-violent. Facts are against it. We partitioned this country on the basis of religion. Whether we like it, we don't like it, it happened. And it was the bloodiest partition, meaning people were killed, number of people who moved from West Pakistan to India and from India to Pakistan. It was one of the greatest movement of very violent. People were killed, the type of violence that took place on direct action day. Why are we becoming blind to this? This is something that I want to place before all of you. Third, when we say that Subhash Bose is the mentor of modern India, who is a mentor? A mentor is a very, very complex procedure, term. because it's loaded with a lot of meaning, and I'm happy. The mentor relationship is one of the most complex and developmentally important. A man can have it anytime, or a human being can have it any. So my first question to most of us when we're talking of Subhash Chandra Bose, extremely charismatic. And is first, who were his mentors? There were two important people whom we don't remember today. Young people like you may not even know. One was Chittaranjan Das, the great Chittaranjan Das, who was the first mentor of Subhash Chandra Bose as a young. His apprenticeship in politics progressed rapidly. One of the several young men who had placed themselves in Chittaranjan Das's direction, Bose was assigned the responsibility for the publicity board of the Bengal Provincial Congress Committee, and also served as principal of the National College. And if you see very clearly, in 1938, as mentioned by your head of the department, Bose was elected president of the Congress, initially with Mahatma Gandhi's backing. Here, I don't know whether most of you have read the book of Netaji Subhash, Thy Hand Great Anarch. In that, he was the private secretary of his elder brother, Sharat Chandra Bose. He brings out this period of 1920 to 1941, till Subhash Bose made the famous escape to Germany. He clearly says that Mahatma Gandhi was not even a foreigner member of the Congress, but he controlled the Congress better than Hitler did. Please, I don't know whether most of you know, Mahatma Gandhi never was a member of the Congress. But still, Congress had to do what he wanted. And one of the greatest injustices, according to Netaji Subhash, was the way he treated young Subhash Chandra Bose. And many people think that there was bias in this. Whether there was, you can decide as students of political science. The following year, however, Bose insisted on seeking re-election against the wishes of Mahatma Gandhi and his followers, and to the consternation of the Gandhi camp. Defeated the Gandhi-backed candidate, and the candidate was from Pattabi Sitaramaiah from Andhra Pradesh, very unattractive, nothing in comparison to Subhash Bose. Subhash Bose was running very high fever. Please read Netaji Subhash. He will tell you he was running very high fever, and still Gandhi refused to come to bless him. So Bose, with very high fever, did go to meet Mahatma Gandhi to get his blessings. And what did Mahatma Gandhi say? He said, he was absolutely, very, very, he didn't like what Subhash Bose did. He showed his consternation. And he said, when I'm not even a foreigner member of the Congress, why do you come to meet me? So he was behaving more like a child rather than a very mature leader. And if most of you know, within a few months, conflict with the Gandhian wing of the organization forced Bose's resignation. Leaving the Congress, Bose formed a party called the Forward Bloc. This, why am I saying it, is paralleling Chittaranjan Das's resignation from the Congress presidency. Anybody who disagreed had to resign. And the formation of the Swaraj Party in 1923. You can draw a parallel. In 1941, Bose engineered his famous flight from India to Germany, and in 1943, he journeyed by a submarine to Southeast Asia to form the Indian National Army and the Provisional Azad Hind government. Many of us today realize that he was the first Prime Minister of independent India. How do we read it in our history books? In September 1942, the Azad Hind government was formed. They had their own currency. And they had their own army. They had territories in Northeast India and the Andaman Nicobar Islands. So in reality, they did have all that it requires for that type of a leadership. But do we ever mention him as India's first prime minister? And the terms that we use for the revolutionaries are also very, very negative. For example, what do we call Lal Bal Pal? That is Lal Bahadur, Lala Lajpat Rai, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, and Bipin Chandra Pal. Extremists. Were they extremists? They were really the revolutionaries. They were the ones who said they want Purna Swaraj. Whereas it was the so-called moderates who wanted some type of a constitutional, There is another controversy that I want most of you to think about, because when we are reassessing Subhash Chandra Bose, he is asking us to think like him, to rebel like him. That is, what is given down to us as the accepted truth may not be the reality. As Robert Cox rightly said, all of you must have read him. He said that any history is written for some purpose and for some person. So if we see very clearly the terms that we use for these revolutionaries, it is time for us today to, after 75 years of independence, to look at this. Now, number 3, Bose becomes a mentor because he says that always only one method is not good. Is it that the Indians were always non-violent? There is no way that in which everybody else had great rebellions, revolutions. We talk of the French Revolution, the American Revolution when we teach students. Why the Indians had no revolutionary spirit? I think this is extremely important, that has to be brought in, because Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose was the one who brought in that revolutionary spirit. And also, please, many people say that he went and joined Hitler, so hence he's a fascist. I somehow don't like these type of branding. Let me tell you, he was truly in the Kautilyan tradition of your enemy's enemy is my natural ally. So the enemy of the British Empire is who was Subhash Bose's enemy? The British Empire. If he was the enemy of then their enemy who was whom? The Axis powers. Today, don't we have the best of relations with Japan and Germany? We are part of the Quad. Shinzo Abe is one of our greatest allies. So I think, see, with changing politics and others, it is wrong to call Subhash Bose a fascist. He was a nationalist, and it was nation first. And let me tell you, Clement Attlee gives us evidence for this, because he says that they did not leave India because of Mahatma Gandhi. I'm not saying this. Please go to the transfer of power archives. If you see there was a British MP who called Mahatma Gandhi the best policeman for the British Empire, not for India. And Clement Attlee said it is not because of these people, the Nehru or Mahatma Gandhi, we left this country. We left it because of the Azad Hind Fauj. Because of them, you had the naval mutiny of in Bombay in 1946, and then the Jabalpur mutiny. The idea that Subhash Bose could put into the people of self-pride, self-dignity, and for that sake, we are ready even to use violence to get our freedom. And Indians are not docile. We are not slaves. I think we have to decolonize. We have been decolonized, but please understand our minds are to be decolonized. Somehow we are very scared to touch the sacred cows. And this is something that you as students of political science and history should see this as a moment, because if you see Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose as a mentor, he mentored telling us that courage, bravery, and when your own country and your self-dignity is being violated, you can take up arms. And everywhere around the world, revolutions have taken place and all of us praise them. Why are we very different when it comes to India? The other person whom I think associated with Subhash Bose that most of you have to understand is Raj Behari Bose of the Gadar Party. He also went to Japan, and many people say he had a lot of influence on the way Subhash Bose contribution to India's national movement. The third issue that I want to raise with most of you is how are we going to look upon the Indian National Army? I think it was Free India's first army. And please understand, it was not a small army. 46,000 people were recruited in that army. Here I would like to tell you, today we talk about women's empowerment. Do most of you know that Subhash Chandra Bose was way ahead of his time? Forget Gandhi, Nehru, who were very patronizing to women. He made Lakshmi Swaminathan or Lakshmi Sehgal in charge of the women's wing of the INA. And I'm proud she comes from my part of India. One of the greatest, soldiers. And please understand, women's empowerment and the type of slogans that he gave, Dilli Chalo, your Jai Hind, all these can only be done with an extremely patriotic human being. And this is something that is extraordinarily important, because to be sure, India has long embellished or distorted how it won independence, and the incongruous juxtaposing of the INA and Gandhi at the parade inadvertently highlighting this. The INA veterans' participation, in fact, helped underscore the Indian Republic's founding myth that it won independence through non-violence. This myth has been deeply instilled in the minds of Indians since their school days. To be sure, the Gandhi-led non-violent independence movement played a critical role, both in galvanizing grassroots resistance to British rule and helping to gain independence. But the decisive factor was protracted World War II, which reduced to ruins many areas of Europe and Asia, especially the imperial powers. The war between the Allied and the Axis powers killed 80 million, and that is 4% of the global population. Despite the Allied victory, a devastated Britain was in no position to hold on to its colonies, including the crown jewel, India. Even colonies where there was no grassroots resistance to colonial rule won independence in the post-Second World War period. The British had dominated India through a Machiavellian strategy of divide and rule. Their exit came only after they had reduced one of the world's wealthiest economies to one of its poorest. Indeed, they left after they looted to their heart's content, siphoning off $44.6 trillion up to 1938, according to the economist Utsa Patnaik's recent estimate. Had the post-1947 India been proactive and forward-looking in securing its frontiers, it could have averted both the Kashmir and the Himalayan border problems. China was in deep turmoil until October 1949, and India had ample time and space to assert control over the Himalayan borders. But India's pernicious founding myth gave rise to the pacifist, that India was a pacifist country that believed it could give peace merely by seeking peace, instead of building the capability to defend peace. Here's the paradox. Countless numbers of Indians died due to British colonial excesses. Just in the man-made Bengal famine of 1942-45, 6 to 7 million starved to death due to the British war policy of diverting resources away from India. Britain sent Indian soldiers in large numbers to fight in dirty wars elsewhere, including the two world wars, and many died while serving as cannon fodder. Indeed, the present Indian Republic was born in blood. As many as 1 million civilians died in senseless violence, and millions more uprooted in the British contrived partition. Yet the myth of India being uniquely charting and securing its independence through non-violence and propagated by the inheritors of the Raj, the British trained brown sahibs. No objective discourse was encouraged in post-1947 on multiple factors, internal and external, that aided India's independence. The hope of India's independence was first kindled by Japan's victory, as most of you know, while Subhash Bose led INA did mount a formidable threat to the British colonial military, overflowing with Indian recruits. The Indian mutiny and other sepoy revolts of 1946, triggered by INA prisoners' trials, undermined British confidence in sustaining the Raj, hastening its exit. Yet independent India treated the INA soldiers shabbily, with many abandoned into penury. So it is time that we pay the debts to these great heroes and heroines of the INA, who fought for this country, who gave their all. Do most of you know another controversy? Many people in Southeast Asia, if today we say that with soft power and all this, all of you must be doing a lot. Who brought in that soft power? It was first the Cholas, and then you have Subhash Chandra Bose. People in Southeast Asia, Indian diaspora, gave their jewelry, gave the all. The question that I'm asking you today is, what has happened to all that treasury that Subhash Bose had collected? Where has it gone? Is there an answer for it? There is no answer for it. Do we even know who took it? And is it not the right of an Indian to ask for accountability? Nobody knows what happened in Southeast Asia. If most of you know, all the movements of the diaspora, Indian diaspora, were greatly inspired by Subhash Chandra Bose. Let me tell you, when I was growing up, my father's, his greatest, he was part of the, a young student when India's freedom struggle. His greatest icon was Subhash Chandra Bose. It was not Mahatma Gandhi or Jawaharlal Nehru, because he was the type of charismatic leader that many young Indians looked up to, both men and women. So the next question is, this whole idea of diaspora, Southeast Asia, where this movement began, from where all the Indians who came and fought and formed there, he was able to even collect money. He was able to collect people to fight for an idea. Show me today any Indian leader who can do this under such adversity. This is another idea of his that is extremely important for most of you. And the last, I would like to bring in the idea of Subhash Chandra Bose, if we call him a mentor of modern India, is his whole idea of an inclusive India. If you have seen that Subhash Chandra Bose was a person who believed in an extremely inclusive, gender equal India. And I think this is something that, an idea which is extraordinarily important. Some people do say if there are hints of history, even the partition would not have taken place had Subhash Bose, we don't know whether he died in the 1945 air crash. Taiwan has invited us to young scholars like you, I think you should be funded by the government of India. Go do your research. There is a lot of controversy of whether he was dead, whether he was in Soviet, he was taken as a prisoner of war to the Soviet Union. And on, many people say, the command of the Congress party at the time, he was kept there as a war criminal and tortured by Stalin. This is one, because there are two spy stories. One, a Russian KGB spy who told Satyendranath Sinha, a Congress leader in Calcutta, that he met Subhash Chandra Bose at cell number 76 in a Siberian jail. And he was being tortured by the Soviet Union, and Stalin was a great friend of India, especially Nehru. Please read Nehru's eulogy when Stalin died. So that is one we don't know. There are controversies. And the last is what Anuj Dar has written, that Gumnami Baba, who later came to Ayodhya. Most of you today say, oh, the Hindu right has nothing to do with Subhash Chandra Bose. If the Gumnami Baba story is true, then he has everything to do with the Hindu civilization. They say he was a monk in Ayodhya, and many people say, at least there are people like Anuj Dar and others who say that the handwriting by one of the greatest experts say that it was Gumnami Baba. So his death is shrouded in so much of mystery. Why? And why were the files not released? If the Congress was not guilty, if the governments, meaning what I'm trying to tell you, students, half-truths and lies about our own history and about our own great figures. So finally, I would only tell all of you that Subhash Chandra Bose is one of India's greatest leaders, and rather I would call him the chief architect of India's freedom struggle. If you ask me as a person who has read Indian politics and history, I would make a revision. I would say the greatest two Indians are Subhash Chandra Bose and Baba Saheb Ambedkar, the greatest social reformer, because he called for the annihilation of caste. I would not accept Mahatma Gandhi as a social reformer because he did practice Chaturvarna. And the way he sidelined leaders without being a foreigner member of the Congress. And the other, the man with valor, courage, who said the Indian can rise up to any situation. And especially when our self-dignity is violated, we can rise and fight. He had to leave under very, very difficult circumstances. The type of escape that he did in 1941. And then he built up an army, not in India, outside India. He collected money for it. He did not loot anybody's coffers. He got it from the diaspora. And the way he could inspire people to fight for the idea of a free, independent, and inclusive India was something greatly admirable, which I don't think any leader of today. And lastly, I think women's empowerment was something that he did. Especially Lakshmi Swaminathan, please read her autobiography. She tells you the ideas with which the way he treated the women's wing of the Indian National Army. So thank you for giving me this opportunity for paying my tribute to India's first Prime Minister, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We are honored to have your presence with us as a speaker for the day. It is a matter of great pride that a person like you with immense love for the nation has spared your valuable time to be with us today and enlightening us on today's topic about the life of Subhash Chandra Bose and how he believed in the idea of an inclusive India. Now, Let's move on to the interactive question and answer session. It would not be possible to answer all the questions by our audience due to the paucity of time, so our team has already selected the best ones. May I now invite ma'am to answer these questions? So, ma'am, I will be reading out the questions. The first question is, where does Netaji stand on his political leanings? If he were the mentor of India, which model or modelism he have opted for the development of the nation?
Okay. A good question, but see, this is all based on a lot of ifs. If you're going to take that he died in the air crash, then maybe with the forward block and whatever he has said in that period of time, we could even place him on a much more inclusive type of a leader, because the INA had people of every caste, community, he was above that. So I would rather place him as an Indian nationalist who was very, very inclusive. But if you're going to take the Anuj Dar thesis, that he was the Gumnami Baba, because he looked very much, that Gumnami Baba looked very similar. If you read Anuj Dar's book, and Chandrachur Bose, another writer who has been saying that what the government would not like you to know, a new book that is coming out. There, if you see Netaji, he became a spiritualist, very much like Aurobindo. Most of you know Aurobindo also was a revolutionary who later becomes a father of Indian nationalism, propagating Sanatana Dharma. That's why I told you in the beginning, you have to differentiate religions that have doctrinal fanaticism against those that don't have doctrinal. Especially Hinduism, we don't have doctrine. Hinduism cannot be extremist. Hindus can be extreme. So I basically want to place this before you, that if it depends on which theory are you going to accept about the death of Subhash Bose. Most of you know there's a lot of evidence that has been given that he was Gumnami Baba, that he came to India. Many people say Lal Bahadur Shastri met him at Tashkent. And he told people that I'm going to give you a secret, that I met somebody whom all of you would be surprised that I met. And he died in very mysterious circumstances. So we don't know whether there was a conspiracy, we have no idea. So it depends on which theory you're going to accept. Whether he died in 41, then we would place him. I wouldn't place him as a left or right, because I think, please understand, India is not an Abrahamic religion. We don't have concepts of binaries. So what we learn from binaries, that is, if you're not with God, you're with Satan. The way of India looking at reality is much more complex. We have a lot of areas of gray. So we look at reality in a much more complex fashion. Then the West looks at it whether you're with God or you're against God. So I think if we are going to place Subhash Bose, I think I would place him as a greatest symbol of the Indic civilization, which was inclusive, which believed in the Upanishadic saying of Ekam Sat Vipraha Bahuda Vadan. There may be different paths, but let us accept. He was literally the quintessential who, like, you know, in the Gita, fought for India. I don't think Gita is a book of peace. It is a book of action. I don't know whether most of you have read Bal Gangadhar Tilak's interpretation called Gita Rahasya. Please do read it. It's a book of action. It's not a book of, see, we Indians are not cowards, and that is what Subhash Bose taught us, that we are as brave or even braver than any other human being belonging to any other nationality when we have to defend our values. Values of nation, values of patriotism, values of freedom. I think he was one of the greatest representatives. So if you ask me, the model I will place him under is under nation first. He fought for the idea of India. India as one, not as this partitioned India, but a united India. Maybe he wouldn't have accepted partition, for which Gandhi and Nehru are as much responsible as Muhammad Ali Jinnah.
Thank you, ma'am, for answering the question. So, ma'am, the next question is, ma'am, what do you think the present impression of Bose would have been much more popular if he wouldn't have partnered with Hitler? As even if we apply Kautilya's enemy's enemy is friend, what Hitler and other Axis powers supported was overtly wrong in every aspect to say.
I would rather take the constructivist or the postmodernist view. See, the postmodernists say there is no universal truth. So this idea that Hitler was bad and Churchill was good is a West again in binaries. Winston Churchill, if most of you have seen the biographies that are come vis-a-vis India, was not a great paragon of virtue. So let us be very careful. I agreed, Hitler did things that I don't support. But please don't forget that Hitler was not an idiot. Hitler was the one who started the nuclear, technology. Most of you know Joseph Goebbels. He had some of the most intelligent ministers. Propaganda, the idea of propaganda comes from Joseph Goebbels. What did Goebbels do? Most of you know is a doctorate in language and linguistics. He was no idiot. See, this idea that Hitler was a maniac, Hitler was this. Let me tell you, Hitler was a very intelligent leader. Okay, the way he reacted is bad. But are you trying to, then why do you call Alexander the Great or even any invader that came to India, including Aurangzeb, Akbar and all, you think they didn't kill? Then if they are not murderers, why do you call only one person a murderer just because the West calls it? So I don't think, see, Bose went and took help of Hitler because he thought that if the British, why Gandhi did it. So even with Subhash Chandra Bose was never the favorite of Gandhi because he was never obedient to what Gandhi wanted. Please read Netaji Chowdhury. He was the private secretary of Sharat Chandra Bose. He tells you things, that doesn't show Mahatma Gandhi. The greatness is okay. They stayed, but power politics did exist even then. We are trying to spiritualize Nehru and Gandhi when we are trying to deal with others. See, all of them had feet of clay. And power, I think, to a large extent. So both of them may have been socialists. But I think Subhash Chandra Bose was the courageous one. That's why Parakram. He was the man who could call a spade a spade. I don't think Nehru could do it. Nehru was a great builder. He was a romantic. He had everything. I'm not saying that Nehru made no contribution at all. No. What I'm trying to say is don't make him into a sacred cow or even Mahatma Gandhi. They were leaders. They had their contribution. But is there no space for anybody else? Indian history, take out your NCERT books. What is the concentration of history for the Mughals and then the Nehru-Gandhi dynasty? 60%. The rest of India did nothing. Where we just washing vessels and keep it white. There are many people who gave their all, who became paupers. Where have even mentioned them? In South, do you even know that there are dynasties that existed? They ruled over the Indo-Pacific. The Cholas defeated the Chinese. Do any one of you even know that they existed? Only Aurangzeb, Akbar, Babur, and we are shown as a country of invaders from the Aryan invasion till the British. That means we never won a war. We never resisted. I think we did. And that is what Subhash Bose symbolizes for us. And it is very important that you cannot have history written. If you see Will Durant, says that the Islamic invasions are the bloodiest period of world history of India. And we don't mention it anywhere. Because why? We say it upsets contemporary sensibilities. How long can you have a history that is written on shaky and whitewashed foundations? History has to heal the past. Sometime you have to come out. Someone will be hurt because truth hurts. If that fellow mined, if that fellow killed, if that fellow raped, you have to say it. You can't say, no, they were great, benefactors. They came to reform us and all that. I don't think this will work. And that is why you are going to have extremity of action now. If we are not going to resolve the wounds of our past, then we are not going to be an honest civilization. And that is what Subhash Chandra Bose said. Yes, we have a tradition where you can mix. He was very much, if Gumnami Baba is right, I don't know, because Anuj Dar and others, the work he has done, I've read his book. It is so convincing that he came back as Gumnami Baba. I don't know. But if that is true, that means he went the Aurobindo way. Aurobindo was a great revolutionary who made bombs. Then was he bad? Whereas if you see clearly, and later he becomes the father of Indian nationalism, Sanatana Dharma. So you have literally Subhash Bose also taking the similar path. Why did he take it? To hide from the Congress. Most of you know that the Bose family was spied upon by the great Congress party. Why? If Nehru was not scared of Subhash Chandra Bose and his charisma and his return, why should the family members of Subhash? I don't know whether most of you have read the leftist historian Purabi Roy's book on Netaji. Especially, she has done some work on the Russian archives. She said that the Congress government used to literally stalk her. Thanks to Mamata Banerjee, it stopped because she was writing this book about the Russian archives, where they say that Subhash Bose was tortured on the, instructions from India. That's why even Putin is not ready to open up this archives, because he says that Indo-Soviet relations will be spoiled. I'm not here saying, she's not a rightist historian. Please buy Purabi Roy's book. She is the wife of a very eminent CPI leader. She says this: there is no left, there is no right. This was a power struggle. It was not ideology. It was just that Subhash Bose was extraordinarily charismatic. And only time did not work with him, I would say. I don't know. But please read her book. She says that he was imprisoned. He did not die in the air crash, because those ashes that are kept in that temple in Japan, they are not allowing you to do a DNA on the ashes. If they were really Subhash Bose's, why a DNA is not allowed? Even take Justice Mukherjee. What does he say? He says, I am convinced, though I have no evidence, that Subhash Bose was Gumnami Baba. So if you see very clearly, this is not being said by left, right, socialist or anything. If you see in the Indian pantheon, I can be left, I can be right simultaneously. The question is of truth. Do we really know what happened? Or are we being only told one narrative? And do we say that that narrative is right? What we are just asking today, because of the 125th birth anniversary of Subhash Chandra Bose, he becomes a symbol of our search for truth. So I would not place it under socialist, left, right. These are very minor differences. You be left, you be right, you be center, you be anything. It's not important. The question is, are our facts right? Or are we writing history on extremely shaky foundations based upon prejudices? I would tell you the greatest Marxist scholar, Gramscian. I will quote Anthony Gramsci here. There is a hegemonic narrative, and this narrative has been written to perpetuate a particular group that wanted it. And he said always, idea of history is written for some person and some purpose. I would repeat Robert Cox, who was a great neo-Gramscian. And was Gramsci a right? Did he belong to the RSS? I don't think so. So please let us forget these political divisions and all. What is important for me as a scholar and for you young people of India is you should question everything. We are not some, closed religion type of a civilization. Even Maitreyi and Garge questioned Yagnavalkya. Yagnavalkya told Gargi that your head will burst if I tell you the truth. So what? She did question. In the same way, I'm telling all of you, question. Because then only you will get answers. And research has to be done. We have to get all these archives open. We have to get the Russians tell us whether they really, that the files are there. The KGB has the files. And please read Purabi Roy's book. The Congress saw to it that it was not published. She could publish it only after Mamata Banerjee came to power. So credit goes to even Mamata Banerjee, who protected her from the goons who were literally stalking her. Please go, she's still living in Calcutta. She is the wife of a CPI leader. She is not a rightist. Her book is available. I have a copy of it. I personally met her. And in the Russian archive, she says, because of her work, she was a Russian expert. So she says that there is clear evidence that Subhash Bose was in Russia, and at the instruction of the Indian government. I won't take anybody's name. We don't know who gave the instructions. He was tortured. And you know, KGB is brilliant at torturing. So again, he was not Hitler. Stalin also was a dictator. Then why don't you condemn Stalin? Nehru was a great friend of Stalin. Then doesn't Nehru become a fascist then? I think please let's not do this. It was a plain power struggle. Only thing is one part is known, the other part is not known. There's been a lot of camouflaging, whitewashing, and it is very necessary that if Subhash Bose has to, and for us as young students, we have to know what really happened.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for answering the question. So the next question is, Netaji was someone who believed in youth and was often called a nationalist. Today, we see debates around the relevance of nationalism and difference with patriotism. How would Netaji's view of nationalism find place in this century? Must we re-establish that definition today?
Yes, I would agree with that, saying that his nationalism was inclusive. I won't agree that anybody is exclusive in India. Because if I again have this problem when you call a particular party communal and another party as secular. These labels are extremely misleading. Because if most of you, I don't know, if you're students of Indian national movement, did most of you know that the Indian National Congress sessions used to take place after the Hindu Mahasabha sessions? There's a very good work done by, I'm forgetting the name of the lady, she has published a book also. Madan Mohan Malaviya, Lala Lajpat Rai, all of them were members of the Hindu Mahasabha. And first the Hindu Mahasabha session would take place. And next, another question I want to ask you. I don't think Bose would have compromised like Gandhiji on the Khilafat movement. He wouldn't have involved Indian nationalism to support the Khilafat movement. That was an absolutely communal cause, and I don't think Bose would have stooped to that level. So let us see that both, as of now, all people available, but I don't know whether Bose, as a Prime Minister of India, and with all this, he would have been much more charismatic, and the partition of India wouldn't have taken place. I can tell you this much, then Bengali would have become the national language of India and not Hindi, because the Bengalis together with Bangladesh would have outnumbered the Hindi heartland. Hindi heartland is only around 32% of India's population. Bengalis are already 28% despite the partition. If Bangladesh would have joined us, Bengali would have become, already Bengali is India's national song, as well as India's national anthem are in Bengali. They're not in Hindi. So let us remember that. So one thing I can tell you, if Bose would have become the Prime Minister, maybe Bengali would have become India's national language. And I'm so happy to say the Hindi people also would have become sub-nationalists like the Tamils, who oppose Hindi as India's official language. So it depends on, so these are ifs and buts. I would say that Bose's nationalism, at least till 41, till he was a rebel, till 45, was extremely, what to say, inclusive and even egalitarian, equality, equity, fraternity as well. So he did have all the spirit of what, let's say, the French Revolution, of liberty, equality, and fraternity. But post-independence, it's very difficult for me, because all of you know people are become victims of circumstances. Would Bose have become that? We don't know. And I'm not a very good futurologist, because this Gumnami Baba issue is greatly troubling me. Because I can't imagine Subhash Bose, the great nationalist, the man who was so brave and courageous, to become an incognito Gumnami Baba somewhere in Ayodhya and Faisalabad and, roaming there. I can't imagine. It doesn't, my image of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose doesn't fit into the image that was given, who died quietly, who lived incognito. Was it possible for such a charismatic figure? I don't know whether the Russian torture changed him mentally, that he didn't know who he was. I don't know. Again, ifs and buts.
Thank you, ma'am, for answering the question. So the next question is, ma'am, is it always necessary to initiate revolution, and that too in a violent one, in order to bring about a change, as a non-violent way has proven to be appropriate in our own country's example?
See, this again is a good question, but my question is, whom are you non-violent against, unless the person values non-violence? Let me take my attacker is very violent. Will non-violence pay? I'm going to get raped. Let's say there is a rapist. Will non-violence work at the time? I would rather advise every young girl in India to learn self-defense and to hit back. I would say, why the person gives you one, give back 10, so that there's one that they won't touch you. So this idea of non-violence, non-violence is effective only if the other person respects non-violence. Let's say like your father or your mother. If the person is not violent, the person respects your views, then maybe non-violence. Satyagraha is also a type of blackmail. See, if I say at home, I'm not going to have food, and you think the fellow is not the person who sympathizes, he'll say, don't eat, I care a damn. He will eat and go. So where does your non-violence work? Your non-violence will not work against Musharraf, against Erdogan. It works under only if the other side is civilized. So the question of violence and non-violence, it's not which is better. It is a question of what you have to adopt according to the circumstances, and what does your enemy fear. Because And I don't know whether most of you have read Erich Fromm's book of Mahatma Gandhi. Erich Fromm was a very great psychologist. Please read his book on Mahatma Gandhi. He says Mahatma Gandhi incited violence in others. You know, he had those two girls and he used to have one a stone as a soap. I believe in some village in Bihar, he forgot. He made those girls walk 20 kilometers back to get that same stone. He could have picked up another pumice stone, which was available so much on the way. So many people say, if you, I don't know, please read Erich Fromm. Erich Fromm is a great psychologist. He says Gandhiji was a sadist par excellence. So this whole non-violent debate, now if you're a student of political psychology, you know, Gandhi, was he Gandhi really non-violent? Anything that went against his, this thing, he was like a small child. He threw his toys and went on satyagraha or on fasting. Okay, who agreed to him? Only those who were like him, like Nehru or Sardar Patel. Did Muhammad Jinnah bother whether he went on fast or not? He would have said, let the old fellow die. I care a damn. See, the question is, which, how is your opponent? You cannot talk peace to a fanatic or a rapist. Say, I'm non-violent, but still he can rape you, na? Because he's violent. So somehow this violent, non-violent separation, it depends on circumstances. And I think we as individuals have to take a take on it. So I would not say one is good and one is bad. So here I would place rather Subhash Bose much higher than Mahatma Gandhi, and B.R. Ambedkar also in social reform much higher than that of Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi's behavior with his wife Kasturba was no epitome of equality. I'm sorry to say it. We can, you know, he had greatness in other things, but everything what he did is great is, you know, I think we are being blind. He was a great this thing, but he was also human. So he had his frailties, his experiments with women, sleeping naked with women. Many people didn't like it. So many people thought, Erich Fromm says it was his wife's vicarious sexual desires that he was appeasing. Please read Erich Fromm. The book is available on the Mahatma. It's a psychological analysis of Mahatma Gandhi. Please read it, a brilliant book. I think all of you should read it.
Thank you, ma'am. So we are done with all the questions now. One individual may die for an idea, but that idea will after his death will incarnate itself in 1,000 lives. Concluding the event with these words of Netaji, now I would like to invite Dr. Santosh Kumar Singh sir to give us an official vote of thanks.
Thanks, Shreya. Respected Professor Santishree Pandit ma'am, Professor C. Sila Reddy ma'am, senior faculty, colleagues, and my dear students. On behalf of the Political Science Department, Sri Venkateswara College, I take this opportunity to propose vote of thanks to those who have directly and indirectly contributed to this webinar. At this outset, I thank our chief guest and resource person from Professor Santishree ma'am for making time from her busy schedule to grace the event. We are really enlightened with your knowledge and the presence. Thank you for inspiring and encouraging us with your words on the special day. A special thank to our principal ma'am for her motivation and support. I would also like to thank Dr. Geeta ma'am and Dr. Naimta ma'am for their support and guidance. I must thank the Political Science Student Association, especially Shreya, Shivam, and the other students for working hard for the past few days to make this webinar successful. Finally, and the wonderful students who have turned up in such a great number, not only from our department, but also from other departments of the college. Thank you everyone once again for making it a great success. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Once again, thank you everyone for joining this session and have a wonderful day ahead.
Thank you, ma'am.